Welcome to Alpha Wolf Capital. I'm Tim, and I want to personally thank you for stopping by. This channel is designed to help small companies, both public and private, gain exposure with potential consumers, investors, even partners. Take, for example, today's guest, CEO Amit Kumar from Anixa Biosciences, ticker symbol ANIX. Anixa is a clinical stage biotechnology company focused on the treatment and prevention of cancer. Anixa's therapeutic portfolio consists of ovarian cancer immunotherapy program being developed in collaboration with the Moffitt Cancer Center, which uses novel type CAR T known as chimeric endocrine receptor T cell technology. The company's vaccine portfolio includes vaccines being developed in collaboration with the Cleveland Clinic to treat and prevent breast cancer. Here at Alpha Wolf, we look for companies that can have a positive impact on humanity, and Anixa certainly qualifies as one of those companies. But I'm going to let Amit tell you more about Anixa in just a minute. This is not to be taken as investment advice. I am not a certified financial planner. This is for education and entertainment purposes only. I encourage everyone to do their own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Capital coming at you with a follow-up interview with what I think is a fascinating story in the biotech space. But this is and I've gone through this in the previous interviews. Amit Kumar is not your everyday biotech CEO. He has been here before. He knows about cash burn, and he knows about phase one, phase two, phase three, and all the other things that can be challenging for biotech companies. But Amit, you have also taken some unique paths to help finance what you are doing at Anixa Biosciences, aren't you?
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Tim. I always enjoy talking to you. And as you noted, we have built a biotech company that is operating with a very different business model than traditional biotech companies. And if people go to the shareholder letter I issued just a couple of weeks ago at the start of the year, they'll note that as a company, even though we have two clinical trials going on in very big potential impactful markets, breast cancer and ovarian cancer, even though we have those two clinical trials ongoing, we burned only $7 million of capital last year. Part of that is because of the structure of our relationships with the hospitals and academic centers with whom we're working. Part of that is that some of our programs are getting significant amount of non-dilutive funding from government agencies. For example, our breast cancer trial is being funded by a grant from the U.S. Department of Defense directly to the Cleveland Clinic, which is where the trial is going on. And they're our partner on this breast cancer vaccine technology. And so, we've built a company that, unlike most biotech companies, don't have to keep raising money all the time. And so the last time we raised money, we did a financing deal was in 2021. So that was 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago. And since then, we've been burning a very modest amount of cash, and we'll continue to burn a modest amount of cash because of the way we built this company and operated this company. We've continued to, in addition to being very frugal, moving our clinical trials forward. And we're seeing fantastic results on the breast cancer vaccine. We're seeing fantastic results on the ovarian cancer CAR T technology, which is a therapy that is being used to treat patients who are terminally ill with ovarian cancer. We have one patient that's alive for almost 2 years that was expected to pass within 3 months. And so, we'll see how she's doing. it's a small trial so far, only 8 patients. The ninth patient is going to be treated in the next couple of weeks. But we're seeing some results that are unprecedented for this type of patient population, effectively terminally ill patients. And in addition to those 2 clinical programs, we have several other programs that are in the pipeline that are still at the laboratory stage, but are also equally exciting. So I'm incredibly thrilled about where we are as a company, and I'm expecting that the capital markets will recognize the value that we offer to potential shareholders. Right now biotech has been in the doldrums, but I'm expecting that to change soon.
You would think that and it's, if I'm not was it the last time that I interviewed you that you had there was a brief mention about how your treasury was diversifying a little bit and getting, I think you got a little bit into Bitcoin. Nothing
Yeah,
huge. It was just diversification, right? You made an announcement about it just to let people know that you were diversifying, and that actually got more attention than the fact that you are literally working on a potential vaccine for breast cancer for
yeah.
every woman, lady, young lady in America, right?
It's
And
uh,
around the globe.
You're absolutely right. It's an interesting world we live in right now, Tim. As you noted, our breast cancer vaccine is in phase 1 studies, but we think potentially that vaccine could one day help eliminate breast cancer or major numbers of the majority of breast cancers from the world, just like vaccines have eliminated diseases like smallpox and polio and things like that. Now, even though we're building a product like that, that could potentially could have massive societal impact, massive impact on healthcare in general, and could be the gateway vaccine, cancer vaccine, to other vaccines in ovarian cancer, lung, prostate, colon, and so forth. The fact that we announced that we were just, going to buy a small amount of Bitcoin to diversify our treasury assets because we have a fair amount of cash we have 3 years of cash on our balance sheet. And so we just wanted to diversify where we hold that cash in addition to treasuries and other limited principal risk securities. We thought we would just hold a small amount in Bitcoin. A number of biotech and other companies are doing that. And so we decided to do that. And I got more calls and more interest in the company because of that than, the fact that one day we're going to be able to save, potentially hundreds of thousands to millions of lives. So it's just an interesting dynamic.
It is an interesting dynamic, but if I'm not mistaken, too, on our last conversation, we talked about the amount of people that you have that are doctors and nurses and this team that are helping, working, writing papers, and they're not getting paid by you. They're doing it on their own, right? To help the cause.
That's right. So a number of our programs are we're not paying for directly because they're being either funded by government agencies. So, for example, our breast cancer vaccine, we have dozens of people at the Cleveland Clinic, physicians, scientists, nurses, other practitioners, and so forth, helping us develop that vaccine. And that's all being done with money from effectively the U.S. taxpayer through the U.S. Department of Defense, which, funds certain things like that. The CAR T program, the CAR T program that is being used to treat terminally ill ovarian cancer patients. A lot of the fundamental research was done with, again, government funding. And now we're paying for portions of taking that through clinical trials, but we're doing it in a very, very cost-effective manner. And again, we have dozens of people at another cancer center, the Moffitt Cancer Center in Florida, which is one of the top 10 cancer centers in the country out of 3,500 that exist in the US. And we have dozens of fantastic physicians, nurses, scientists, and technicians working on that trial as well. And we can do all of that in a very cost-effective manner. You can look at our financials, and as I noted in my shareholder letter, all of that is being done with a $7 million burn, or basically $7 million burn in the last fiscal year for this company. And that includes all of the costs associated with being a public company, the legal, the audits and so forth, and all of the costs associated with these clinical trials. So we're very, very frugal with our capital, and we will continue to be so.
When I think the last time we met, you had just dosed, you had just gotten approval to give a second dose to, right, with the
Yeah.
ovarian cancer.
Yeah, so we have one patient who is doing incredibly well. I referenced her earlier. She was expected to pass within, she was essentially terminal and was told to go and get her affairs in order. After we treated her with our CAR T therapy, she's doing great. She's, close to 22 months now, and she's also on some other therapies as well now. But you know, that's unprecedented in ovarian cancer, especially with this new type of technology called, chimeric antigen receptor T cell technology. That's a big mouthful, and the science behind that is very, very complex. But that's a technology that really created a lot of excitement a few years ago for leukemia and lymphoma patients, especially late stage leukemia and lymphoma patients who are also terminal. And that type of technology create, in those patients was able to, for a large percentage of them, effectively cure them, or at least have a significant response in extending their lives. But that technology has not worked in solid tumors. And we are one of the first companies, and despite the fact that many companies have tried to develop that type of technology for solid tumors, with significant numbers of failures, our technology, even though it's early stage, is starting to show some indications that this is looking very promising. And I hate to it's hard to make major conclusions just based on a small number of patients, or even one patient, for example. But the fact of the matter is, we have those patients, and we're starting to see some things that we think are unprecedented. So we're pretty excited, and we want to continue moving this trial forward, and as we get more and more patients.
So, so after the second dose, was there a measurable improvement from where she was, or is it too early still to?
Yeah, it's too early to say. You pointed out that we got FDA approval. When we went to the FDA and asked the FDA it was sort of it's called an emergency IND, investigational new drug application, or an individual patient IND, where we said, we got this patient and we think she could benefit from a second dose. Can you give us the approval to give her a second dose? And so we've given her a second dose. She's going to be imaged in the next short period of time, and we'll have some information on her. But regardless, she's already close to 2 years alive,
Right.
when she was
Right.
not expected to last that long.
Of the other small group, are you seeing anything as significant? I mean, the other patients within the group that.
So some of the patients have passed
Right.
because these are terminal patients, and
Yeah.
in some cases, either they didn't respond, or they were too far along for the therapy to work. It's hard to say. And some of the patients showed uh, what we call cell infiltration, meaning the therapy that we're giving was getting into the tumor, and it's hard to say exactly how much impact they were providing. But the key is, we're trying to evaluate various things. One of the key determinants of how good a therapy is a term we call overall survival, OS, overall survival. And so when you have a number of patients that have overall survival that's significantly more than what they're expected to do, then you have something really good. And so we have this one patient who's 22 months overall survival, significantly better than she was expected. It's anecdotal, of course, and some other patients were living longer as well. But we need to get more patients so we have a statistical, at least some ability to evaluate or make broader conclusions as opposed to a small number of patients. And so it's early days, 8 patients. We're about to do the 9th patient. As we do more, we'll have a lot more information. And by the way, I should say that the way these trials work is you start off with a very low dose in the patients because FDA requires you to verify that the dosage is safe. And then you increase dose as you do cohorts of patients. And so every 3 patients, if the dosage is safe, we increase the dosage. And so we're now at the 3rd cohort, which is 10 times as high a dose as the very first cohort. And then after this cohort, we anticipate going to another cohort, which is 30 times the dose, and then another cohort, which will be 100 times the dose. And we anticipate as we go to higher and higher doses, as long as there are no adverse side effects, bad side effects, that we will be able to start seeing more and more responses in these patients. So this is where the action is happening now. Now we're at dosages where we anticipate a lot more patients will either respond or not respond, and we'll have to see what the result is. I'm
How do the
I'm counting on them responding.
how do the patients how do they get involved in I mean how could they get involved if somebody's dealing with this right
Yeah.
now? How would they be able to get involved in this study?
So because this is a trial for terminally ill patients, these are patients that have had to fail every other approved therapy. I shouldn't say every other, but anywhere between 2 to 6 other approved therapies.
Okay.
And so after they've had those other therapies and their tumors are still progressing, they're effectively terminal at that stage. And that's when they can enroll in our trial. Now, because the trial is only going on right now at one cancer center in Florida, at the Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa, Florida, they have to be in the vicinity of, geographic vicinity of Florida right now. As we go further, into additional trials, we will expand the sites to other sites throughout the country. But unfortunately, right now, it's just Tampa, Florida.
Okay. Got it. I mean, that's for some of these cancers too. I mean, to go through, what did you say, 2 to 6 treatments
Yeah,
and have to fail those, and who
yeah,
knows how long those treatments take for you to actually understand whether or not they're being effective,
yeah,
right? That if you have a very aggressive cancer, that's not going to give somebody a whole lot of time to even
yeah.
maybe not even to get to you, right?
That's right. That's right. These patients have been beat up a lot. They've gone through a lot. In fact, many patients at that stage in their life, they don't even want to take another treatment. They'd rather just take the next 3 or 4 months of their life and try and enjoy as much of it as they can with their families. And so these are very, very difficult patients with very poor quality of life. And so if we can give them better quality of life and longer life, then it's significant.
What would be the thing that would need to happen for that um the failure of 2 to 6? What would need to happen to change that dynamic where they could just enroll?
Yeah, I think eventually when therapies like these get approved by the FDA, they're
Oh,
approved.
it has to wait until approval. There's no compassionate
Yeah,
use. I mean, if somebody, I don't know, I don't know. I
yeah,
mean,
it's hard. Yeah,
Uh,
there are regulations that enable compassionate use, but they're not used very frequently for a number of reasons, which are, probably are beyond the scope of this interview to discuss. But re really, the only way to get this therapy is once it's approved, either in a clinical trial or once it's approved. And at that point, there's discretion amongst, by the physician on whether they can use it as what's known as first, second, or third line therapy. Typically, therapies like this are for late stage, very ill patients. And eventually, if there's enough data and enough experience, they can be used earlier. One of the challenges for this type of therapy is that it is very expensive because this type of therapy, unlike our breast cancer vaccine, this therapy requires a patient's white blood cells to be extracted. And then those cells are sent to a laboratory, a separate laboratory, where scientists will genetically engineer those cells to make them better cancer fighters. And then they're sent back to the hospital where the patient is to infuse them, put them back into the patient, and hopefully those cells will attack the cancer. And so it's a complex process. It's not like going to the shelf and pulling out a vial and injecting it into the patient. This is truly personalized medicine. You're using that patient's own white blood cells and you're genetically engineering them to make them better cancer fighters and then putting them back into the patient. You can't put those cells in another patient because there'll be an immune response against those cells. And so it's truly personalized medicine. We're not trying to destroy the cancer with a drug. We're trying to make the patient's own immune system more powerful and more potent to destroy the cancer. So it's a really, really innovative new type of immunotherapy. It's expensive, but the costs are coming down every day, and they'll continue to come down as more and more therapies like this get further into clinical trials and eventually to approval.
so that's the ovarian. Let's talk about the breast cancer
Yeah.
vaccine and why you're excited about the results from that so far.
Yeah, so just a little bit of context about cancer vaccines. We all know that there are lots of vaccines for infectious diseases that have been very successful: polio, smallpox, measles, and even though this is a political issue, even COVID vaccines, right? Um, and the reason is because what vaccines do is they train your immune system to attack something bad. And when you're trying to destroy an infectious diseases, we've been very successful with a few notable exceptions, but we've been pretty successful because it's relatively easy to train your immune system to recognize and attack something that comes from the outside, a virus or bacteria. Um, in the case of cancer, cancer cells come from your own cells. They're your own healthy cells that have become bad. And so the delta, meaning the difference between a cancer cell and a healthy cell, is often very difficult for the immune system to recognize a cancer cell. Because if it recognizes the cancer cell, often it'll attack the healthy cell as well. And so that doesn't work. You don't want to kill your, healthy organs while you're attacking a cancer. So the world of cancer vaccines is strewn with lots of failures because the molecular mechanisms, and maybe I'm getting a little bit too much into the science, but
No, that's okay. I want to hear it. So
yeah, so the molecular mechanisms that people have used in the past, we think have been flawed. Um, I shouldn't say we, our partners at the Cleveland Clinic, a brilliant scientist, a few years ago, came up with this other idea that enabled us to target, in this case, breast cancer cells without targeting healthy cells. So our vaccine teaches the immune system to destroy breast cancer cells, and we're focusing initially on triple negative breast cancer, which is the most lethal form of breast cancer. So our vaccine targets these cancer cells without attacking healthy cells. And that's the key because now it almost makes the cancer cell look to the immune system like it comes from the outside, like an infectious disease. And so we think that this approach is going to spawn a whole bunch of other vaccines, which we're working on as well. But in the breast cancer situation, we are already testing it in human beings, and the data is looking good. In the phase 1 study, we're testing it on 3 types of patients. One group are patients who've already gone through their breast cancer journey, which includes surgery and chemotherapy, and now they're worried about recurrence. And
Okay.
so we're giving them the vaccine. In triple negative breast cancer, anywhere from 40 to 80% anywhere from 40 to 80% of cancer of patients after they've gone through all of their treatment will have a recurrence.
Have a relapse, right?
Yeah, and when it comes back, much more aggressively, and it becomes a battle to keep that patient alive. And so, we want to see if this vaccine might be able to prevent those recurrences. So that's one group of patients. A second group of patients is an interesting group of patients. These are patients who've never had cancer, but they carry genetic mutations in certain genes that we know now predispose them to getting breast cancer. And may have mentioned this in our previous interview, but a few years ago, you may recall that Angelina Jolie went public with her journey. She was a carrier of these mutations, and she had a prophylactic mastectomy, meaning a bilateral. She had both of her breasts surgically removed, even though she was perfectly healthy at the time. There's no indication of cancer, but she was going to get cancer based on her mutations. And a lot of women are doing that. This is a very difficult decision for women, as you might imagine. It's a disfiguring surgery for a young woman, lots of side effects, expensive, all the things associated with the surgery. But a lot of women are doing that because they don't want to die of breast cancer. And so we're taking this group of women who've decided that they're going to have this surgery, and we're vaccinating them before their surgeries. And then after they have their surgeries, we're going to look at their tumor, I'm sorry, we're going to look at their breast tissue, which is purportedly healthy, but because of their mutations will eventually become cancerous. And so we're going to try and evaluate how our vaccine is impacting that breast tissue. We may see, like we saw in the animal studies, that the white blood cells that we are inducing with the vaccine are surveilling the breast tissue. We may find microtumors in the breast tissue that you can't see on a mammogram, but after you've done the surgery, you can see in a microscopic level. This is a very unique type of trial that ordinarily you never do because in general, you can never get healthy, you never cut out healthy tissue from human beings, right?
Right.
But in this
Right.
particular instance, these women have decided to do that because of what they
Wow.
knew about it. So that's another group. And then the third group are people who've gone through their breast cancer surgery and still have residual disease. So these women are almost guaranteed to recur at some point. And so these women are being treated with a number of different types of therapies, including immunotherapy. And we're going to try and see if we can give them the vaccine along with immunotherapy and see if we can improve their odds or reduce their odds of having a recurrence. And so that's a group of 3, and we've gotten fantastic data on all these groups of women. We presented that data at a scientific conference in November, and we'll be presenting more data at future scientific conferences. And based on the data that we've seen so far, we're already planning a phase 2 study, which we hope to begin this year. And the phase 2 study will be one where we'll actually see how good this vaccine is in a treatment setting. We're going to take women who have just been diagnosed with cancer and they're treated before their surgery in what's known as the neoadjuvant setting. So that means before surgery. So they all get treatment before surgery, various types of treatment. And the goal of that treatment is to try and reduce their tumor burden so the surgery can be less aggressive And also, after surgery, the chance of recurrence is lower. And so we're going to be treating these women with standard of, we're going to be doing a trial where we're going to treat half the women with standard of care. So those women are not going to get any, less treatment, any poorer treatment than, they ordinarily would. But half the group is going to get the vaccine on top of standard of care. And so this is what's called a placebo-controlled trial. So half the women are getting standard of care, which is the placebo group, and the other half of the women are getting the vaccine. And then we want to see how the vaccine group responds relative to the placebo group. And that'll tell us whether 60% of the women are responding, 20% of the women, or 100% of the women are responding. And so that's going to be a very, very exciting result. And again, these trials can take some time, but we're incredibly excited about seeing the data from that trial.
I mean, it's I mean, I think about it, and I think to myself, especially what is it, October? Every October is like,
Yeah,
right, Cancer Month. And I think about how many lives that this could potentially impact in an unbelievable, unimaginable way, right?
yeah, yeah. I think this is the best project that I've ever worked on. Could have the massive impact that we talked about earlier. Um, the potential for this being a lead cancer vaccine that could end up enabling cancer vaccines in other types of cancers. Imagine a world where we might be able to give people shots and eliminate a large percentage of cancers. Cancer is the number two killer in the world today, certainly in the United States and most likely the world today. And I think everyone has dealt with this either directly themselves or with family members, loved ones. And we all know that when someone gets cancer, it's not just them getting cancer. The whole family and everyone in their orbit is impacted tremendously. And it's tremendous cost to the healthcare system. And one thing I want to say, and it's something that comes up when I talk about this vaccine, because vaccines have become a little bit of a political issue right now, and it sounds like they will continue to be. People ask me, well, is the government going to force you to take this vaccine? And the answer is no, because the only government mandates for vaccines are vaccines that are responsible for infectious diseases, measles and COVID and things like that. Um, Cancer is not infectious, so you can't get cancer by hugging someone who has cancer, right?
Right,
So this is not a vaccine where the government is going to say you have to take it. This is something that you will make your own choice if you want to take it. If you're worried about breast cancer, then you'll take it. If you don't care, then you won't take it. We know that 1 out of 8 women in the United States will get breast cancer in their lives. And so I would think that most women would want to take it, but if you don't want to take it, you don't have to, and you can, hope that you're in that 7 out of 8 that won't get cancer.
right, right. I just think, I mean, these are two, the ovarian, I mean, that you get that, it's kind of like pancreatic cancer, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
get diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, you don't have much time left.
Yeah. Ovarian cancer, like some of the other cancers, which are hard to screen or diagnose early, is one where by the time you find out you have it, it's pretty far along. And so then it becomes very difficult to use surgery and other therapies to, try and treat it. We don't have a good screening technique for ovarian cancer. We have screening techniques for a few cancers like breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer. Not a great one, but we have something for prostate cancer, cervical cancer. So we have a few, but ovarian is one of those that we don't have anything for. And so you may have stage 1, stage 2, even stage 3 cancer, and you really don't feel different. And then all of a sudden, things start happening. You go to the hospital and you find out you've got cancer, but by then, often it's too late. And so outcomes tend not to be very good for things like that, where we can't catch it early.
That's, it's like a cruel thing, right? I mean, that's you think everything's fine, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're got a few weeks or a few months to live. That's it's
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, cancer is one of those types of every disease is bad. You know,
now,
Tim, I can't, but certainly cancer is where we're working and we want to make a big impact there.
and that's why we're talking, right? Because my
Yeah.
whole thing is uh, there are a lot of amazing companies out there. So I guess in my head, I think to myself, for this company at this stage, what is it that um, just everyday people or could do to help Anixa help people become more aware of Anixa, of what they're working on? I mean, I guess the reason I asked is how do they participate in these programs, right? Even for the vaccine.
Yeah.
I guess they have to be going through some kind of a medical process, right?
Yeah.
In order to qualify for that. But there's a lot of people that know people that maybe are going through this and would have no idea about Anixa, right?
Yeah. We're a small company. And even though we're working, for example, with this breast cancer vaccine, we're working with Cleveland Clinic, which is probably the best hospital system in the whole world, certainly in the United States, and most likely the world. Um, the Because we're a small company and because we've only tested this on a small number of patients, not everyone knows about it. And because vaccines in the past have all failed in cancer, uh, there's a little bit of skepticism. And rightly so. Scientists are always skeptical until they start seeing, big results. And we're already starting to see positive results, but it's still early days. I think the way, if people want to participate, well, I should say, in with regard to the breast cancer vaccine, there's already a waiting list of people. I get calls from lots of people all the time who hear about this and say, "How can I participate?" And some people are able to participate, some are not. It's only going on at the Cleveland Clinic, so you got to be in Cleveland, Ohio to participate. There's some constraints, and there are always those constraints in the early days. As things get further along, there will be more people that'll be able to participate. I think, the best thing I could tell people is if you want to be kept aware, just go to our website or and you can sign up and send us your email. You'll get our press releases. You'll understand what we're doing when we begin our phase 2 trial. You'll get the press release and you'll see where the locations are. The thing is, people are aware of cancer, but no one really cares about it until they have it or a family member has it. Then they go on the internet and start searching. And uh, was that your dog or your wolf?
That's she wants to be part of this. She wants to be part of this meeting so bad.
Yeah.
But I'm going to actually shut the door right now.
Well, dogs get breast cancer too, so she's
Yes, they
probably
do.
aware of that.
I just closed the door on her. She's
Yeah,
going to be
no,
a
no,
little irritated, but that's okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so just stay on top of what we're doing, and as things go further along, I've done a lot of TV interviews about this breast cancer vaccine. You can watch those on our Anixa.
I just saw one the other day that you had done, and I mean, I'm happy to see that you're broadening, out, and that people are becoming aware of it. And like you said, I mean, this is the phase 1, but as phase 2, as you go into the different phases, um, I'm all of a sudden very popular today. Uh, as you go into the different phases, that opens up more opportunities or more potential opportunities to get involved, right?
That's exactly right. And more opportunities to get involved, and also we learn more. We have a lot of good data now, but as we get more and more patients and we get into a phase 2 where we have a placebo-controlled study, we'll learn a lot about how this vaccine works, how good it is. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we can show results as good as we showed in animal studies. In animal studies, we were able to show that the vaccine was able to prevent breast cancer in 100% of the animals that were treated. These are mice, and so
Right.
mice are different from humans, and there's a lot of differences in how, these are all mice that were living in a cage and they were fed the same diet. Humans are different. Some smoke, some exercise, some eat different
Right.
diets. So there's a lot of variabilities. But the point is, even if we can eliminate 80% or 60%, I mean, that's pretty amazing. So we're excited. Even if we eliminate half, that's a home run, right?
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I mean, 10%. I mean, that's 10%. How much is a life worth? I mean, that's
exactly.
right. I mean, how much is, or just improving quality of life for people that are going through this type of thing, right? I mean,
Yeah,
what's that worth? I mean, I understand that it gets worth more when it becomes more personalized to you,
yeah,
right? If it's you or someone you know that you love, then yeah, it's worth a lot more. But we have to think about it a little differently, I think. I mean, all lives are valuable, right?
yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I love this story. I love your approach and how you're very cognizant of cash burn
Yeah,
and things like that. The Department of Defense, I thought was I had never even heard of that. I thought that was really interesting, and I like the fact that you kind of think outside of the box in terms of trying to, and you did. You
yeah,
found finance or funding for that for this.
yeah.
Um, you also, I mean, this breast cancer, the vaccine, you discovered this through some old archives, I think, of prior clinical studies, right? And then you got an expert pretty much in the breast cancer field that like took a look at what you saw and said, yeah, there's something here, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I told this story on my last interview, but I think it's a very interesting story. I found out about this, the key paper that was interesting to me was published in 2016. And I found out about this a year later. I read the paper and I got very excited about it. And so I called a good friend of mine and a mentor of mine. I'm going to give a shout out to this person. His name is Mike Shepard, who, if you Google his name, he was the inventor of one of the most successful breast cancer therapies in the world called Herceptin, which is a multi-billion-dollar drug. It has been given to countless, hundreds of thousands of breast cancer patients and saved countless number of lives. He was there in the early days of Genentech, in the early days of biotech, when he invented he invented the antibody therapy, and then it was taken into clinical trials by other physicians and eventually approved. And that monoclonal antibody spawned the whole area of monoclonal antibody development for cancer. And that now we have, so many out there because of that first one. And Mike was the one who developed that antibody. So I called Mike and I said, Mike, I just read this paper. Can you take a look at it and tell me what you think? He thought it was amazing, and so he and I got on a plane and went to the Cleveland Clinic and went to speak with the scientific team there. And we got even more excited. They were excited. It was, we all saw the vision that this could be so impactful. And so we partnered with them in 2018. And at that time, the vaccine was still in the laboratory. And in 2021, it went, got all the FDA approval necessary to begin clinical trials. And now we're in the clinical trials. And now we're hoping to begin a phase 2 study and then eventually, get a phase 3 and eventually get this approved. Yeah. So Mike Shepard, who knows more about breast cancer than practically anyone I know, and the inventor of one of the most successful breast cancer drugs out there. Still a even though it was invented, approved many years ago, still a multi-billion-dollar drug that's sold by Roche and Roche Genentech. And I value his judgment, and he looked at it and said, "This is very exciting." And so, here we are.
Is he still actively checking in, as of today, or is he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still on our scientific advisory board. I just talked to him a couple of days ago. We talk frequently. He's on top of what we are doing, and so he's a fantastic person, very knowledgeable. He's forgotten more about breast cancer than I will ever learn.
That's that's a pretty good person to have in your camp, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
Well,
and you bring up another point, and just highlighting, if you go to our website and look at the advisors that we have some of the top people involved. I used to be on the board of directors of the American Cancer Society for 6 years until I termed out, and many of the former American Cancer Society board members, two of their CEOs are on our board, on our advisory board. Several of the chairmen of the American Cancer Society are on our advisory board. We have a very elite group of people that are supporting what we are doing. And then, just a little, you referenced the fact that we've been very frugal with our capital and will continue to be so. I think it's important. I just want to highlight that even though I'm a scientist and I'm interested in making sure this vaccine and these other therapies get to the marketplace and have an impact on patients' lives, I'm also a businessman. I'm the CEO of this company, and one of my responsibilities is to make sure that we get a return for our shareholders. And so, it's important to note that part of that is making sure that we're very careful with how we spend money. Part of that is also making sure that our capital structure is very clean. Many biotech companies have had to raise money, and some of these companies are run by former classmates and colleagues of mine. They had to do deals where they've often ruined their capital structures with massive warrant overhangs and often toxic
so
terms.
it's so important that people hear this portion of this conversation, because most small companies, whether it's biotech or any small cap, micro cap company,
Yeah,
they're not aware of capital structure.
yeah,
They are not aware of how Wall Street really works. And unfortunately, you wind up doing the deal with the devil sometimes, and it's a deal that there is no way in hell you're coming out of, because of the dilution and
yeah,
warrants and preferreds and
yeah,
ratchets and all
yeah,
the stuff that can happen
exactly. And
finance.
we have none of that. We've stayed away from that. We have no debt. We're not leveraged in any way. We don't have any warrants, any preferred stock. It's all common stock. And one of the, most important indicators of, how much insiders believe in the company is insider buying. And we've bought, every one of us, myself, our board members, other senior staff, as well as other people who aren't necessarily reporting people, have bought stock in this company. I myself have bought over $2 million worth of stock in this company because I'm incredibly bullish about the things that we're doing, as well as our insiders. So again, I just want to highlight the fact that I'm wearing two hats. I'm a scientist who wants to make a big impact in medicine and on patients, but I'm also a businessman who wants to create a lot of value for our shareholders, including myself.
How many shares do you have fully diluted outstanding?
We have 32 million shares, all common stock. Yeah,
Okay, so 32 million shares is nothing. I mean,
yeah,
really, right? And I actually don't have your chart up right now, but last time I looked, it was somewhere right around $3 a share. Is that right?
yeah, three and change. Yes.
Three and change, yeah. Which has been there for a while. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
kind of been in my head. There's not a lot of no one's in control of the stock. You don't have buyers aren't in control and sellers aren't in control, and that's not uncommon for a company. I mean, what is it waiting for? It's waiting for some kind of a trigger, right? Uh, whether it's positive data or potential partnerships. We didn't even talk about that, but
mhm,
as this progresses along, and let's just say you get more positive data that would indicate, this is on the right trajectory. That's when normally you start getting knocks on the door, right?
Yeah, not only knocks on the door, but also significant additional capital and alliances that enable us to move forward to commercialization much more, much faster, because pharma companies have infrastructure for commercialization that a small company doesn't have. And I don't want to build because it just takes a long time, takes a lot of capital. And some of these products, like a breast cancer, let's assume for the sake of argument that one day this breast cancer vaccine reaches the vision that we have, which is it'll be potentially useful for every woman in the world. A small company like that could never manufacture and distribute something like that all across the US or even certainly not the world. But a big company, big pharmaceutical company that has operations and infrastructure to do that can do it. And so we would like to be able to partner with someone that can really commercialize this product in a very, very fast way.
Which is music to my ears because you could take the view that for something is potentially blockbuster as this, right? Because of just the nature of you're really you're stopping breast cancer, right?
Mhm.
You could have that mindset of, well, we're gonna keep this all to ourselves and reap the rewards of all these profits, right?
Yeah,
That's very feasible. I've been involved with companies that thought that way, right? And they had no clue what it was going to take to commercialize
yeah,
a new drug. It was just, I think they had $600 million, which seems like a lot of money. When you hear $600 million, you think, wow, that's a lot of dough. I don't think it lasted even 6 months with
yeah,
the marketing and the sales,
yeah,
and it just was like gone, right?
yeah.
And that's a scary thing to watch. So the fact that you are telling me right now, we have no intention of taking this to market and commercializing. We want a partner, which is a
Yeah, I mean
very
it's all part of this strategy of watching our pennies, right? The companies, the big pharmaceutical companies have already invested in that massive commercialization infrastructure to manufacture, to sell, to market, distribute, to the logistics, all of that stuff. And they would like to pump more product through that in sunk cost, that infrastructure that they built. And we are the innovators. We're innovating, and we want to get to a point where a company says, you know what, this is going to be big. I want to partner with you, and we'll share the revenue. And it's a win-win for everyone. It's a win for us. It's a win for the pharma company, and it's a win for patients because that synergistic combination of us and a partner could get the product out much more fast, much easier, much more easy than I'm using a double modifier. I have to use correct grammar. Uh, much faster than we could on our own because we would have to build sales forces. We'd have
yeah,
to build infrastructure, and it just doesn't make sense to do that. Let's take it. Let's not reinvent the wheel.
right. All right, Amit. Listen, I wanted to get an update because I saw you had a few press releases. I did see the interview that you did, and I really, I mean, I want to help you get your story out because I want people to be more aware of the fact that there is a company out there that is working on something like this, and this could be extremely impactful. So, the whole thing for me, Alpha Wolf Impact, is I want to help companies that are really small, unrecognized now, but it's the consumers, it's the investors, it's the brand ambassadors that help companies like you become recognized and maybe find an additional investor to help support or what there's a lot of different things
Yeah.
that can happen from something like this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on again, Tim. And I also want to just finish by saying that if anyone is interested, we didn't get into detailed science today. That's probably beyond the scope of this interview. But if anyone is interested, scientists, physicians, or even patients that want to talk to me and get into the details of the science and how all of these things work, I'm accessible. I've made a commitment to call everyone that reaches out to me. It may take me a few days because I'm busy, but I do try and reach out to everyone who reaches out to me. So you can go to our website and send an email to our info email address, and it'll get to me. And I'm happy to talk to anyone. In fact, as a scientist, I really enjoy talking about the science. So if
And see, and I love that. That's another thing that could be used, right? So you get to it within the field that maybe this sparks some interest in, and maybe they can contribute some things to you. I mean, who knows where this could
Sure,
possibly go, right?
absolutely.
It's all about communication. So that's you have to know they exist first.
Yeah.
So that's the deal. I mean, I love it. Amit, we will have you back. When do you anticipate that you'll have some maybe some data that would be, you know, whichever way it goes, it doesn't matter. I mean, when do you think maybe there might be something
I think maybe a good time to chat again would be in third quarter after the ASCO meeting, American Society of Clinical Oncologists meeting, and we can target sometime after June to chat.
after June? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. We'll definitely make sure we have you back, touch base, and see how things are progressing.
All right. Thank you, Tim. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Amit. All right. Hold on one second. I'm going to shut this off.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in to another CEO interview here at Alpha Wolf Capital. Today we had Amit Kumar from Anixa Biosciences, ticker symbol ANIX. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, do us a favor, give us a like. How about giving us a share? And while you're at it, please make sure you smash that subscribe button. All of those things are very important to us here at Alpha Wolf Capital, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Capital wishes you the very best of success.